The scalpel felt wrong in James Harper's grip, surgical steel meant for healing, now the only thing between him and three figures materializing from the medical bay's darkness. Their stealth suits bent light like water over broken glass, making them shimmer and vanish, and reappear closer with each heartbeat. The nearest assassin raised a plasma cutter, its blue arc humming death. James's body remembered combat before his mind caught up 12 years of rust, burning away an adrenaline fire. The scalpel drove through the assassin's wrist joint where armor seams met flesh-scraped bone. Metal clattered on deck plating, a knee to the solar plexus. Andralis anatomy pressure points mapped different than human folded the attacker like paper. The second came faster. James grabbed a surgical tray, hurled it. 3 seconds bought. He rolled his energy rounds scorched air where his head had been felt heat kiss his neck. Across the bay, Lyra Ashara, queen ruler of 3-star systems, the woman he'd pulled from fire and thought he'd lost, spun from her medical scanner. Her wrist bracelet unfolded into condensed light, a blade that sang as it cut reality. The third assassin broke formation, angling toward her exposed flank. No time for thought. James's hand found his med kit on the counter, battered case that had crossed war zones, held together with duct tape and promises kept. He threw it. The case tumbled end over end, caught the assassin's helmet square. Not enough to kill, just enough to break the strike, to buy Lyra the heartbeat she needed. Her light blade drove through the attacker's midsection, and the stealth suit failed, revealing military gear underneath. The world froze. The med kit bounced once. Lyra's blade burned white. James's chest heaved, tasting copper and ozone. They told me coming here would be safe, his mind whispered. They lied. The image shattered. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story started 12 years ago in hell. Arcturus Station clung to its asteroid like a dying animal, all sharp angles and desperation made metal. James Harper, 30 years old and already exhausted by war, checked his M7 plasma rifle for the 4th time in as many minutes. Green ready. His morphine Surette count told a different story. 12 left, maybe 15 casualties if luck smiled and death didn't. The air tasted like recycled fear. His comm crackled. All units, enemy artillery incoming. Evacuation in 20 minutes. Repeat 20 minutes to orbital pickup. 20 minutes. He'd triaged 47 wounded in 6 hours. 31 could walk, 16 couldn't. The math was simple and terrible, and math in combat never lied. His hands moved through practiced, routine device lines. Plasma flows lies about how everything would be fine. The lies came easier than truth. 3 years into his enlistment had taught him that words could be medicine too, even false ones. Outside the station shuddered under bombardment. The Andralis fleet had them surrounded, outgunned, out everything. Humanity's 3rd Medical Battalion was dug into an asteroid that barely qualified as cover, and someone in Fleet Command had decided strategy mattered more than lives. His father's voice echoed across decades. At Chosin, we never left wounded behind. 40 below zero, surrounded by Chinese, we still brought our boys home. James touched the silver star in his pocket, metal warm from body heat. 3 generations had worn that metal. His grandfather name lost to family legend. His father, Chosin Reservoir, 1950, 15 survivors from 200. Now him, Arcturus Station 2033, making impossible choices about who lived and who got left behind. The first orbital strike hit like divine wrath. Gravity compensators screamed. James grabbed the nearest gurney before physics could kill. His patient became a human brake against chaos. Private Martinez, 19 gut wound, didn't wake. Morphine saw to that mercy. Evac shuttle leaves in 15, his corpsman shouted. Walking wounded now. The calculus was brutal. 31 ambulatory, 16 critical. Shuttle capacity 45 if they packed tight and physics cooperated. 2 trips maybe if the Andralis gave them time they wouldn't. Get them out. James's voice carried command he'd earned in blood. I'll stay with critical cases. The corpsman's face went pale. Sarge, the 2nd shuttle. There won't be one, we both know it. 31 walking wounded shuffled toward the airlock, a parade of borrowed time and bandages. Then the station shook again, and the lights died. Emergency systems bathed everything in red. James's rifle light cut white through crimson as he ran toward the explosion's echo. Training said stay with your wounded. Instinct said someone needed him more. The transport had carved a trench through the eastern corridor, shedding armor and structure like a dying animal losing scales. Chemical fires burned with spite, needing no oxygen. The cockpit was just gone, a neat absence where pilots used to be. James dropped into the troop compartment. Two bodies, no pulse, already cooling. Three more past help. And in the corner, half buried under debris and corpses, a figure in lieutenant's insignia. Too pale, too still, too much blood. He almost moved on. Then her eyes opened, violet marking Andralis' ancestry, unfocused with shock and loss. She tried to speak. Her lungs produced only a wheeze. Don't. Marcus shifted debris with hands that knew exactly how much weight bone could bear before breaking. Save your strength. I'm getting you out. Her hand caught his wrist with surprising strength. Others, check others, he checked. There were no others, just her clinging to life despite the metal spar through her abdomen and the compound fracture that had turned her femur into modern art. James pulled his med kit close. Trauma shears cut away armor and uniform. His hands cataloged damage by touch and training faster than thought. Tension pneumothorax, needle decompression, left side second, intercostal. The hiss of released pressure. Compound fracture, femoral. Traction splint. Aluminum and straps became something that might keep bone from shredding artery. Abdominal penetration. Combat gauze packed tight. IV line normal saline running wide. The station lurched. Artillery barrage close enough to rattle teeth. James threw himself over her human shield against fire and flying metal. The universe screamed. He counted heartbeats, measuring survival in the spaces between dying. When the world paused its attempt at murder, he started talking. Talking kept patients conscious. Consciousness kept them fighting. You're going to be fine. The lie came smooth as silk. I've seen worse. One-time guy came in with a plasma rifle through his torso. Wouldn't shut up about his card game. You're not nearly that bad. She laughed, which became a cough that produced blood. Very not good, liar, she whispered. Absolutely. That guy died, but you won't. What's your name, Sarah? A cough. Lieutenant Sarah. No, Lyra. Lyra Eschara. The name tickled memory. Ashara, one of the royal houses, the ones who tried brokering peace before shooting started. But royalty didn't enlist as lieutenants, didn't end up bleeding out and crash transports on nowhere asteroids. Well, Lieutenant Lyra Ashara, I'm James, Staff Sergeant James Harper. 3rd Medical, and I promise you're not dying alone in this wreckage. Her hand found his grip tight as another explosion shook their corner of hell. He talked through the bombardment. Montana, wide skies cold that made Arcturus feel tropical. His father, Korean War Chosin Reservoir, the battle where outnumbered became irrelevant when Marines decided not to leave their wounded. His mother, cancer eating her while he was deployed, how you couldn't combat medic, stage 4 anything. Military coffee, which had to be a classified weapon designed to build character through suffering. Lyra told him about being 47th in line for a throne she'd never wanted. Joining the military to prove she was more than decoration and bloodline. The garden on her family's estate where crystalline trees grew singing colors humans couldn't see. In her delirium, her grip tightened. The precursors, she muttered. They left something, cure for everything. James adjusted her IV. Shh, save your strength. You'll have to show me sometime. The trees, I mean. Her grip on his hand tightened. Promise, promise. You'll show me the singing trees and I'll make you terrible coffee. My dad's recipe, guaranteed to build character. The bombardment eased. His comm crackled. All units evacuation shuttle departing in 5 minutes. Final call. James looked at Lyra at the IV, keeping her pressure stable, the splint holding her leg together. The gauze slowly losing its battle against internal bleeding. Moving her would kill her. Staying would kill them both. The math was simple and terrible. He stayed. The shuttle engines whined overhead, Doppler shifting into distance. James held Lyra's hand, counted her heartbeats, measured survival in the spaces between dying. When rescue finally arrived 2 hours after the fleet pulled back for reasons intelligence would spend months analyzing, they found him still there, still holding her hand, still whispering about coffee and gardens and futures that seemed impossible. The flight medic took over. You did good, Sergeant. She'll make it. James watched Lyra's shuttle lift off, watched until his eyes burned, watched until he couldn't anymore. 3 days later, someone told him the hospital ship carrying Arcturus wounded had been destroyed in transit. Total loss, no survivors. He added Lieutenant Lyra Ashara to the list in his head, the one that never got shorter, the names that whispered in his sleep. 47 saved at Arcturus, one more he hadn't. The math never worked. Red Mesa, Arizona baked under summer heat that had nothing to do with astronomy and everything to do with desert trying to kill you. James Harper, 42, and feeling every scar, wiped sweat, and peered into Mrs. Patterson's ancient diagnostic scanner. The machine wheezed like it had emphysema, which was fitting since it was older than most patients. The scanner coughed up results. Stress fracture left ulna. 6 weeks in a brace, 3 if she ignored medical advice. She would. Mrs. Patterson, you need to stop arm wrestling teenagers. I need to stop losing to teenagers. Different problem. The clinic was technically Harper Medical Services, but everyone called it that place where the stubborn doc doesn't charge vets. 2 exam rooms, 1 surgery doubling as storage walls colored institutional beige that had given up on life in the 90s. Home. He'd bought it with discharge pay and 12 years of military salary with nowhere to spend it. Equipment was donation bin surplus held together with zip ties and spite. But it worked. Danny Miller, best friend, fellow Arcturus survivor, the only person allowed to show up at 6 a.m. with coffee that tasted like regret, kicked open the door with 2 cups. Your terrible coffee maker is still broken. It's achieving its full potential. Its full potential is war crime. Danny dropped into the chair with exactly 1 comfortable angle if you sat at 17 degrees. He'd served in the same battalion, same firefights, same long nights, wondering if dawn was promise or threat. Now he ran an auto shop 3 blocks down, fixing hover cars and vintage combustion with equal disdain. You look like hell. It's 6 a.m. Hell is my natural state. No, you look like you didn't sleep. Again, the nightmares had gotten worse. Arcturus, the crash-violet eyes begging him not to leave, then going cold in his dreams, because that's how his brain insisted the story ended. 12 years and his subconscious couldn't accept he'd saved her busted just to lose her 3 days later. Slept fine, James lied. Danny didn't believe him, never did, but friendship meant letting some lies pass. The morning crawled through Red Mesa's medical chaos. Rancher with a broken collarbone from disagreeing with a fence. Migrant worker with heat exhaustion and fear in her eyes because papers mattered more than health. James treated both charged, nothing, pretended not to notice cash left under the table. Then Danny mentioned it casual as breathing. Heard something weird. Andralis found ancient tech. Real hush-hush. Government types all nervous. James's hands paused mid-suture. Ancient tech. Yeah, some precursor stuff. You know the civilization that disappeared 10,000 years ago? Apparently they left facilities behind. Medical ones. James thought about Lyra's delirium, her muttering about precursors and cures. Dismissed it as shock-talking. Lunch was protein bars and terrible coffee. The meal that kept you alive without making life worth living. The courier arrived mid-afternoon. James heard it first, anti-grav bike, too high-end for Red Mesa, too precise for tourists. He looked up to see a figure in ceremonial armor blocking his doorway, blocking sunlight and common sense equally. The armor was Andralis work, organic curves, geometric impossibilities. Metal that drank light. The helmet alone probably cost more than his building and land combined. Dr. James Harper. The voice had unnecessary reverb. Like normal speech, needed drama. Just Harper. Haven't used the doctor title since discharge. The courier reached into a compartment that hadn't existed seconds ago, produced a crystal tablet pulsing with inner light. A seal Marcus recognized from news broadcasts, stylized constellation royal authority, the kind that meant someone important wanted something impossible. You are summoned by royal decree to appear before Queen Lyra Ashara of Andralis, defender of the outer reach, keeper of 7 systems. Does she have many titles? James interrupted. Because I've got 3 appointments, and Mrs. Patterson's brace won't fit itself. Her Majesty's title's number 47 in formal recitation. I've been merciful, appreciated. What does a queen want with a washed-up medic? The courier presented the tablet. Text flowed in English and high Andralis, the latter moving like liquid silver, beautiful and useless to him. The summons gave coordinates, a deadline, 3 days and 0 explanation. Her Majesty's business is her own. A transport arrives tomorrow at dawn. Be ready. And if I'm not, the courier's hand moved to their belt. James's combat instincts cataloged threat vectors. Then the courier pulled out a credit chip, placed it on his workbench. Her Majesty anticipated resistance. 75,000 credits transferred when you board. Consider it compensation, James stared. 75,000 would fix everything. Climate control that only worked Tuesdays, the scanner held together by prayer. Maybe bribe Mrs. Patterson's brace into growing itself. That's generous or desperate. Her Majesty is rarely desperate. The courier turned to leave, paused. I'm told to inform you that refusal would be disappointing. Disappointing like seed or like orbital bombardment. Her Majesty doesn't bomb people who disappoint her. A beat, usually. After the courier left, James stood in his clinic surrounded by broken equipment and judgment-flavored silence. Through the window, Red Mesa baked handful of buildings, solar collectors, the dried fountain nobody fixed because caring required energy people didn't have. He'd built this life. Small, quiet, uncomplicated. No command chains, no combat zones, no holding hands, while people bled out, making him promise impossible things. The tablet pulsed, waiting. Behind him, Mrs. Patterson's scanner made a sound like a dying cat offering commentary on life choices. James picked up the tablet, pressed his thumb to the acceptance seal. Crystal flared confirmation transmitted across light years. He had 3 days to figure out what you wore to meet royalty. Probably more than 2 clean shirts and the jacket with only minor burn marks. Danny showed up that evening with beer and accusations. You're going. His voice carried the flatness of arguments already lost in his head. James pulled bottles from the refrigerator, the kind using actual ice, because some tech didn't need improvement. 75,000 credits. Danny took the bottle, didn't drink. That's not why. They sat on the clinic's back step, watching desert sunset paint impossible colors. Arcturus had been black and red, fire and void. This was orange and purple, and pink beauty that made war seem like fever dreams. She's alive, James said. What, Lieutenant Ashara? The transport crash. She's alive. She's the queen. Danny processed this. You thought she died. Hospital ship. Everyone said total loss, no survivors. And now she wants what? To say thank you. James pulled the tablet from his pocket, played the message. Lyra's face appeared older than he remembered, harder, where command had carved its marks. James Harper, her recorded voice said, I need the man who kept his promise. Danny watched the message, watched James watch it. You made a lot of promises at Arcturus. I made one to her. That she wouldn't die alone. She didn't. No, James agreed, she didn't. The beer tasted like courage he didn't have and memories he couldn't escape. His father's silver star sat in his pocket next to the tablet, metal and crystal, past and future, 3 generations of men making promises in fire. You know it won't be simple, Danny said. Queens don't summon random medics just for thanks. I know, and you're going anyway. I made a promise. James's words tasted like Arcturus, like blood and gauze, like violet eyes trusting him when trust was the only currency that mattered. I kept it then. I'll keep it now. Danny drained his beer. Your dad would understand. Chosen right, never leave the wounded. Never leave the wounded, James echoed. 3 generations. Same promise. They sat in silence as night fell and Red Mesa's lights flickered on small defiances against dark. Somewhere past atmosphere and void and distance that made light hesitate, a queen waited. A woman he'd pulled from fire, whose hand he'd held while the universe tried killing them both, who remembered him when memory should have been impossible. The transport would arrive at dawn. James would be ready, because some promises transcended distance, and some debts could only be paid in person, and some small part of him, the part hearing artillery in his sleep, needed proof he'd saved at least one person who stayed saved. The transport landed at 0547, which counted as dawn if you were generous. The craft looked like someone had taken aerospace engineering, set it on fire, rebuilt it, according to principles that made geometry cry. Parts existed at angles that shouldn't fit. The hull shimmered with that quality he'd only seen in Andralis tech, solid and not solid matter, having an identity crisis. Sophia Cruz, Danny's cousin, ex-Air Force current pilot of impossible things, met him at the ramp. First time on a living ship, that obvious. You're green and we haven't left Atmo. She gestured to a seat resembling modern art more than furniture. Sit anywhere, ship will adjust. Probably Andralis Tech has opinions, sometimes decides you'd be more comfortable elsewhere, and rearranges. Try not to panic if your seat migrates. The journey took 6 hours, feeling like 6 days. The viewport showed space wrong colors that shouldn't exist, stars close enough to touch, at one point a nebula that waved. That's normal, Sophia said when James mentioned it. He decided not to ask what normal meant when reality was optional. Sophia told stories to pass time, explained how Queen Lyra had tracked down 47 James Harpers before finding the right one. Computer searches, military records, interviews with Arcturus survivors. 12 years of searching, cross-referenced with discharge records, in addresses, following threads mostly leading nowhere, until one led to a clinic in Red Mesa, Arizona. She's dedicated. Some might say obsessed. Some might say desperate, and maybe both. Sophia pulled up files. Check this. Queen's been researching precursor tech for 5 years. Classified stuff. She showed James a document marked top secret in 3 languages. Ancient medical facility, possibly an Arcturus system. Capable of curing genetic degradation. Requires specific DNA signature to access. Why tell me this? Because the Queen thinks you're the key. James studied the file. I'm just a medic. You were there, at Arcturus, when something happened. Sophia's eyes were serious. Something activated that day. A signal. Precursor signal. You and the Queen were both exposed. That's classified information. I fly her ships. I know things. Sophia tapped the screen. Whatever happened at Arcturus, it changed you both. Bonded you somehow. The facility, it needs human and Andralis DNA. Together. James felt something cold in his chest. She didn't summon me to say thanks. No. Sophia's smile was sad. She summoned you because you're the only one who can help her access a cure. For what? Sophia hesitated. That's her story to tell. Andralis appeared like a jewel against void green and blue planet, but in high orbit floated Skythrone. The palace made no sense. Towers spiraled up and down simultaneously. Gardens bloomed in vacuum. Bridges connected sections miles apart yet somehow adjacent. It rotated slowly, catching light, throwing it back in prismatic patterns. Everyone stares the first time, Sophia said. Wait till you see inside. Been here 50 times. Still get lost. They docked at a platform that hadn't existed moments ago. Minister Hayes met them, human late 50s robes shifting colors with movement. He had the weary patience of someone who'd guided many confused visitors through impossible architecture. Stay close. Palace rearranges based on Queen's needs and moods. Yesterday, throne room was north. Today, it's vertical. Vertical, you'll see. They walked through corridors where gravity was suggestion rather than law. Water flowed upward in crystalline streams, suspended like liquid sculpture. Gardens grew from walls and ceilings, flowers blooming in colors that hurt to look at. Other visitors passed, some human, many not all moving with casual confidence of people who'd accepted reality was flexible here. They turned a corner and stood in a forest. Not a garden, actual forest with trees, impossibly high roots disappearing into mist. The path wound between trunks humming with internal light. Queen grew these herself, Hayes said. They sing when she's happy. Right now they're humming, which means focused. What do they do when angry play, discord, and remedies? Unsettling. The forest opened into vast chamber where the floor was transparent, crystal showing planet far below. The throne sat at center, carved from frozen starlight or concentrated hope, or something that made James's medic brain insist matter didn't work that way. And standing before it, speaking with advisors whose features marked them native Andralis, was the woman he'd pulled from fire 12 years ago. James's first thought was, Holovids didn't capture presence. Lyra Ashara wore formal regalia woven from shadows and silver dark hair in intricate braids threaded with light-catching gems. Her skin was pale as moonlight, features sharp with beauty that cut if you looked too long. She moved with absolute certainty, every gesture deliberate, every person oriented toward her like gravity made flesh. His second thought, he'd never seen her stand. At Arcturus, she'd been broken and bleeding. In the message, seated. But standing, commanding, radiating authority that made air feel heavier. This was someone else entirely. Except the scar on her left temple, barely visible beneath braids and gems. The scar, his trauma shears, had left checking for skull fracture. That scar he knew. That scar he'd made. Your Majesty. Hayes bowed with practiced precision. James Harper, as summoned. James managed something probably ridiculous compared to Hayes's performance. Lyra studied him with violet eyes, color marking Andralis heritage, same eyes that had looked up from wreckage, begging him not to leave. Then she smiled, and the queen disappeared behind someone warmer, almost playful. James Harper. Her voice carried melodic quality all Andralis voices had, speaking halfway to singing. Tell me, do you remember pulling anyone from burning wreckage at Arcturus Station 12 years ago? The question hit like plasma to chest. Arcturus siege become massacre where he dragged survivors while sky rained fire. Dozens pulled from wreckage hands, held promises made he wasn't sure he could keep. I remember a lot of burning wreckage. Your Majesty, that battle was extensive. She stepped closer. He noticed the scar again, how it caught light, how it was flaw and proof of survival. Do you remember holding someone's hand in the dark, promising they wouldn't die alone? And suddenly, impossibly, he did. Memory crashed through 12 years, face pale with blood loss, violet eyes struggling to focus, debris everywhere, her hand gripping his while artillery turned the world to fire. The lieutenant apologizing for bleeding on him while he worked. Who'd stayed conscious because he'd told stupid stories. Who'd made him promise she'd see singing trees again. You, James said, voice rough. You were the lieutenant. They told me the hospital ship was destroyed. I know. Lyra's smile turned sad. I wasn't on it. Evacuated earlier. By the time I recovered enough to ask about the human medic who saved my life, you'd mustered out. Covered your tracks well. Wasn't trying to hide. No, you were trying to disappear. There's a difference. The throne room felt smaller space between them, measured in heartbeats and shared memory. Do you know how many James Harpers exist in human space? I found 47 before you. That must have been annoying. First three were particularly disappointing. One was 80. One was in prison for smuggling. One insisted on showing me his vintage Earth music collection. I heard something called polka. Traumatic. Her eyes caught light humor and relief tangled. But I found you, and now you're here. James looked around. Impossible palace queen who'd spent 12 years tracking one unremarkable medic, crystalline trees beginning to hum. Like welcome, so he said. What happens now? Lyra's smile widened. Now, James Harper, you help me with something impossible. And perhaps if you survive my court's attempts to poison or murder you, we finish the conversation we started in fire. The lights flickered. Once, twice steady, guards straightened hands moving to weapons that looked grown rather than forged. Lyra's expression shifted humor, draining replaced by something colder and infinitely more dangerous. That's not supposed to happen. Should I be concerned? Palace systems are tied to my biorhythms. Flickering means disruption. She stood smoothly and every conversation died. My apologies, I need to check something. James stood with her earning sharp looks. Lyra didn't comment, just started walking with James and 4 guards in formation. They'd barely reached the corridor when explosion hit. Not close, somewhere deep in lower levels, but the structure shuddered like living thing in pain. Crystalline trees shrieked discord, and gravity stabilizers hiccuped, sending James stumbling into wall, feeling more gel than stone. Throne room, Lyra snapped, already running. That came from the throne room. They moved through corridors, actively reconfiguring. Palace defenses, waking walls sliding to new positions, doorways sealing, security drones materializing from alcoves. James was certain had been empty. His combat instincts kicked in, old training surfacing through rust. He cataloged exits, assessed threats, stayed close to Lyra's left side because he remembered from Arcturus that old injuries sometimes made movement fractionally slower there. The throne room was chaos. Smoke billowed from breached wall panel. 3 figures in light-bending armor engaged palace guards. 2 guards down, one moving weakly, the other ominously still. James was moving before thought caught up, feet carrying him in combat crouch, toward fallen mine, assessing injuries from 20 feet. Plasma burns, severe but treatable, the other passed help. Behind him, Lyra's wrist blade unfolded, and the queen became warrior. Precise, deadly, meeting attackers, with fluid grace making violence look like choreography. James reached the wounded guard, started treatment. Automatic hands remembering rhythms his mind tried forgetting. And somewhere in chaos and screaming, an impossible palace trying to protect its queen, one thought crystallized: absolute. He'd come expecting gratitude. Maybe a medal, certainly not this. He'd been wrong. Whatever a queen wanted, it wasn't going to be safe or boring or anything resembling the quiet life he'd built. That thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like coming home. The wounded guard's pulse fluttered thready, weak rhythm, meaning shock and internal bleeding. Plasma burns had cooked through armor into flesh, third degree minimum, possibly fourth, where energy vaporized muscle to bone. Combat gauze pressure, IV line threading into vein trying to collapse. James's hands moved like prayer, like 12 years between Arcturus and now had never happened. Around him, battle reached crescendo. Lyra's light blade met final attacker's weapon in sparks tasting like ozone and burnt metal. The attacker went down, stealth armor flickering and failing, revealing standard military gear, same insignia marking them palace security. The implications hit James like plasma to gut. Inside job. Someone in the palace wants her dead. Medical teams rushed in. James finished stabilizing the guard, flagged proper equipment. The guard would live. Probably. Better math than Arcturus. Lyra crossed to where he knelt in blood and burn residue. You have a habit of being right place when people need saving, or wrong place when people try killing. James stood, knees protesting. 42 felt older, kneeling on deck plating. Is this regular third attempt this year? You get used to it. That's concerning or impressive? Both. Her smile carried edges. Come. We have much to discuss, and my medical bay offers better privacy than crime scene. The medical suite was quieter, all soft lighting and tech that whispered instead of beeped. Lyra sealed the door wall, shimmering privacy field, keeping conversations from traveling. She gestured to chair designed by someone who'd never met human anatomy. Sit, please. James sat. Chair adjusted beneath him, molding to spine in ways feeling invasive and comfortable equally. Lyra remained standing, backlit by holographic displays showing planet below green continents, white clouds, beauty making war seem impossible and inevitable. You thought I was dead? Not a question. Hospital ship. Everyone said total loss. I wasn't on it. Injuries severe enough they evacuated me first. By the time I recovered enough to ask questions, you'd mustered out. Disappeared. Retired to Arizona. You covered tracks well for someone not hiding. No forwarding address, no contact with unit, nothing in public databases. Took me 3 years confirming you were alive. James thought about Red Mesa, the clinic. The quiet, the deliberate choice being somewhere war couldn't find him. Didn't want to be found. By anyone or by me? The question landed heavier than it should. By the past. By things I couldn't save. By nightmares coming, whether I wanted them or not. Lyra moved to medical console, fingers dancing across holographic controls. Screens bloomed, scans, data, medical information, making James's trained eye narrow in concern. Images showed internal structures, organs not quite right, vascular systems degraded, speaking of chronic damage. Neurological pathways showing deterioration that should have killed the patient months ago. This is why I found you. Lyra's voice was quiet. Not to repay debt, not even to say thank you, though you deserve both. This is why I spent 12 years searching. The scans rotated, and James saw what they showed: damage from Arcturus injuries, looking healed on surface, but slowly destroying everything beneath. 6 to 8 months, maybe less, before catastrophic failure. You're dying, I'm dying. The same injuries you stabilized 12 years ago are catching up. Andralis medical tech is advanced, but we can't regenerate damage this severe. Every specialist says the same: inoperable, irreversible, terminal. James stood, moved closer, medic brain, cataloging symptoms and searching for solutions. Probably not existing. Why not tell your council? Because they'd see weakness. There are factions wanting me dead, James. People thinking a dying queen is worse than no queen. The moment they know I lose what little control keeps this alliance together. So you brought me as your doctor. I brought you as the only person understanding my body well enough to have kept it alive when every algorithm said I should have died. You worked miracles with gauze and morphine. I need you to work another with everything Sky Throne can provide. Displays cycled through more data treatments, attempted procedures, tried catalog of expensive, thorough failure. James recognized some approaches, saw where they'd gone wrong, saw where they'd been right but too late. I'm a field medic, not research physician. You were the man who promised I wouldn't die alone. Lyra turned from displays, and in soft light, she looked less like Queen and more like the lieutenant he'd pulled from wreckage. Scared, defiant, refusing to surrender even when surrender was logical. I'm not asking you to cure me, I'm asking you to try bomb. Before James could answer, door chimed. Hayes's voice filtered through, Your Majesty, Council demanding audience with Dr. Harper. They're insistent. Lyra's expression hardened back to something regal and untouchable. Of course they are. Tell them we'll attend shortly. She looked at James and something passed between them. Understanding maybe, or shared recognition, the easy part was over and hard part beginning. Welcome to Sky Throne, she said. Try not to let them kill you before I do. The council chamber was designed to intimidate vaulted ceilings, disappearing into shadow seats, arranged in semicircle, putting the accused at focal point of 12 judging eyes. Holographic displays floated behind each counselor, showing credentials and authority in glowing script. James stood center and felt every one of his 42 years, every scar from Arcturus, every choice leading from Montana to Arizona to Impossible Palace, where reality bent around power. An unvetted human in Her Majesty's medical wing. Chancellor Callis spoke first, older Andralis with silver threading, dark hair, violet eyes, having seen too much and forgiven nothing. This is unprecedented. Unprecedented, not forbidden. Lyra said from her throne, smaller here than Grand Chamber, but no less commanding. Dr. Harper has clearance by my authority. Your authority isn't questioned, Your Majesty. Your judgment is. Careful, Chancellor. That line is thinner than you think. But something in Callis's expression seemed almost sympathetic. James noted it, filed it away. General Kyle Voss shifted in his seat, drawing James's attention. The military commander had a face giving nothing away, but his eyes, same violet marking. Andralis tracked James with predator focus. Staff Sergeant James Harper, Voss's voice carried parade ground precision. 3rd Medical Battalion, Arcturus Station. 47 lives saved under fire. Impressive. I was doing my job. Your job was triage and evac. You stayed when final shuttle departed. That's not orders, that's choice, Admiral Rachel Stone interjected. The human representative was older than James by 2 decades, weathered. Look of someone who'd spent years in submarines hunting things that hunted back. I served Navy during Cold War. New men making those choices, stay with wounded or save yourself. Harper chose correctly. I remember Cuban Missile Crisis. We were surrounded, outgunned, but we held. James felt something shift in the room. Stone's support carried weight. Then Callis surprised him. I must agree with Admiral Stone. Dr. Harper's record speaks to character. He saved our Queen when she was merely a lieutenant. That loyalty deserves recognition, not suspicion. James studied Callis. The sympathy seemed genuine. The Chancellor met his eyes and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Grief recognized grief. Your Majesty, Lady Saris, said diplomat smoothness, making James distrust every word. Security protocols exist for reasons. This human has no clearance, no oaths, no ties to Andralis' interest. He has tie to me, Lyra said, and something in her tone dropped temperature. 12 years ago, he gave me a promise. Unlike some in this chamber, he kept it. Crystalline trees outside began humming low vibration, speaking tension and restrained power. The meeting adjourned with formal efficiency and informal hostility. Counselors filed out several shooting, James looked suggesting he shouldn't accept food from strangers. Ever. But Callis approached, voice low, Dr. Harper. A word. They stepped aside. Callis's expression was pained. I lost my wife in the plague, my 3 children, all within a week. He pulled a small hollow from his robe's family photo, smiling faces. I understand what it means to save a life, to keep promises. If there's anything I can do to help. James felt his guard lower fractionally. I appreciate that, Chancellor. Callis nodded. This alliance, human and Andralis, it's fragile, but worth protecting. Whatever you need, ask. After he left, Hayes appeared at James's elbow. That was unexpected. What was Callis defending you? He's usually the most isolationist on council. James thought about the grief in Callis's eyes, the pain in his voice. Maybe he means it. Maybe Hayes said. Or maybe he's playing a longer game. The formal dinner was theater dressed as diplomacy, 50 guests at table long enough to qualify as architecture. James sat at Lyra's right, earning stares ranging from curious to murderous. First course tasted like memory, looked like poetry. Second course involved flavors his tongue insisted couldn't coexist. Third course was soup and bowls, humming with internal light. Lyra leaned close, traditional poisoning time. Don't eat it. You're serious. 4 attempts in 3 years, all during soup. Almost ceremonial. James studied his bowl, liquid silver threading through something darker, steam rising in patterns too deliberate to be random. This is insane. This is politics. She took delicate sip, apparently immune to whatever toxins might swim in her portion. Chancellor Callis is seated close. They won't risk poisoning me tonight with his position. Next course, however, lights flickered. Once, twice longer. Lyra set down her spoon with careful precision. Guards straightened. That's not palace adjusting. That's explosion came from below, and behind close enough to rattle dishes, far enough not to kill immediately. James's combat instincts dropped him into crouch before thought engaged, body remembering how to be small and ready. Everyone down, he barked command, carrying authority he'd thought retired. Lyra was already moving, wrist blade unfolding, as she pivoted toward throne room entrance. 3 figures materialized from shadows too shallow to hide anyone. Stealth suits, light-bending armor weapons, humming lethal promise. Throne room doors blew inward. Smoke and chaos poured through. Guards engaged attackers in firefight, turning air to plasma and screaming. James grabbed nearest thing, resembling weapon-serving, utensil decorative and useless, except as improvised blade. His medic brain cataloged targets, while survival brain screamed this wasn't his fight, not his job, not his problem. Except Lyra was center of it, light blade deflecting strikes that would carve through armor movements, precise and deadly, reminding him she'd been soldier before queen. One attacker broke from main group, angling toward her exposed flank. James saw strike coming 3 seconds before landing, saw Lyra engaged with another opponent, saw geometry of violence and opportunity. He threw his improvised weapon. It tumbled through air, caught attacker's faceplate just hard enough to disrupt aim. Plasma bolt that would have taken Lyra's head, scorched ceiling instead. Lyra spun, recovered, drove blade through attacker's midsection in one fluid motion. Stealth suit failed, revealing standard military gear. Same gear palace security wore, same insignia, marking them as loyal guards. The remaining attackers saw companions fall, made tactical retreats. Palace security had sealed exits. Escapes became surrenders, violence bleeding into aftermath. Medical teams rushed in. James moved to help, wounded 2 guards down, both alive, both salvageable, with quick intervention. An hour later, medical bay. Lyra sat on examination table while James checked for injuries. Minor burns on left arm where plasma grazed armor. Bruised ribs from impact. Nothing serious, everything painful. His fingers found scar on her temple, one he'd given 12 years ago. You're getting good at this. At what, surviving assassinations? At staying alive when people try very hard to kill you. I had good teacher. Her hand caught his wrist, echo of Arcturus' promises made in fire. You're the only person seeing me as Lyra instead of queen. The observation hung between them, weighted with implications James wasn't ready to examine. Before he could respond, Hayes burst through door. Dr. Harper, we found something in attacker's gear. You need to see this. The morgue was colder than necessary. Temperature dropped to preserve bodies not decaying like human tissue. James stood over attacker's corpse, medic training, cataloging details, making his skin crawl. Neural implants, military grade, requiring authorization from high command. Combat drug residue in bloodstream stimulants. Pushing androlus physiology past safe limits, trading tomorrow for enhanced today. And in back molar data chip so small, James almost missed it. Hayes extracted chip with precision tools plugged into secure terminal. Encryption broke under administrator access, revealing coordinates and schematics. But it was the technology that caught James's attention. The neural implants weren't standard androlus issue. They had a crystalline structure he'd never seen before. This isn't androlus tech, James said. It's older. Hayes pulled up comparative analysis. You're right, this is precursor technology. Crystalline nanotech, 10,000 years old minimum. How does someone get precursor tech implanted in assassins? That's what we need to find out. Hayes showed more data supply manifests, personnel records, all classified at levels requiring General Officer Approval. This traces to General Voss's R&D division. James studied records, saw patterns making horrible sense. Voss has been running illegal experiments. Looks that way, but there's more. Hayes pulled up older files, troop movements from 12 years ago, artillery bombardment nearly killing everyone on Arcturus. Voss commanded fleet that day. He ordered strikes. James felt cold settle in chest. He tried to kill her then, before she was queen, before she was anything except witness. Hayes showed more evidence. Massacre, 200 civilians killed, blamed on Andralis separatists. Lyra's transport evacuating survivors. Witnesses who could testify Voss's forces did the killing. He couldn't let them talk, James said. So he called orbital fire on his own people. And you saved the one person who could prove it. Medical bay door opened. Lyra entered, saw their faces, understood immediately. You found something. James showed her evidence, coordinates, records, truth buried under 12 years. Voss tried to kill you at Arcturus because you were witness. He's trying again now because you still are. Lyra studied data with eyes having learned to see patterns in chaos. But she surprised him. I've suspected Voss for months. Intelligence flagged anomalies. I investigated, found enough to suspect but not prove. I needed someone from Arcturus, someone who was there. You used me as bait, James said. Silence stretched. Hayes looked uncomfortable. Finally, Lyra spoke. I've known about Voss for 6 months. I brought you here because I need proof that'll stand before council. I need witness, and I need you alive to testify. But there was something else in her expression. Something she wasn't saying. There's more, isn't there? James pressed. Lyra hesitated, then decided. The precursor facility. The one that might hold cure. It requires both human and Andralis DNA. Simultaneously. Something happened at Arcturus 12 years ago. When you saved me. We were both exposed to precursor signal. It bonded us somehow at molecular level. James remembered Lyra's delirium, her muttering about precursors and cures. That wasn't just shock talking. No, we're the only ones who can access the facility. You and I. Together. Before James could process this, alarm screamed. Hayes checked his console, face going pale. Your Majesty's surveillance shows Lyra was poisoned during dinner. Chemical analysis, slow-acting toxin. 48 hours without antidote. James's medical training kicked in. Where's the antidote? Garrett pulled up more data. Intelligence suggests it's at Arcturus, Voss's secret facility. James looked at coordinates at data at Queen, who'd spent 12 years finding him just to put him in impossible situations. So we have 2 days to find antidote and gather evidence against a general who's been covering tracks for over a decade. Assuming antidote exists, Hayes added. Assuming it's at Arcturus. Assuming this isn't exactly the trap it appears. James thought about his father at Chosin, choices made in cold and fire, promises, transcending logic. I'm going. I know, Lyra said. I wouldn't have asked otherwise. You didn't ask. You arranged circumstances so I'd volunteer. Semantics. Her smile carried something between apology and satisfaction. Sophia's preparing stealth ship. We leave in 2 hours. Did I stutter, Your Majesty? Lyra, she corrected. If we're flying into hell together, use my actual name. The stealth ship was smaller than expected, designed for speed and invisibility over comfort. Sophia checked systems with casual efficiency of someone having made this run before. This is insane, she said, not looking up from pre-flight. I know. And you're going anyway. Made a promise. Seems I'm in the habit of keeping those. Sophia pulled up nav course 3, jumps through warp gates, skirting contested space, arriving at Arcturus from approach, avoiding sensors if universe felt generous. Your father would understand. Chosen right, never leave wounded. Never leave wounded, James echoed. 3 generations, same promise. She initiated launch. Your dad would also mention that staying with wounded doesn't help if you get killed being stupid. He'd mention it, then do it anyway. Ship lifted from Skythrone's bay, reality compressing and stretching as they transitioned to quantum slip drive. Through viewport, stars became lines, became colors that shouldn't exist. James pulled photograph from pocket, his old unit at Arcturus, 5 faces, plus his all young and stupid and convinced they'd live forever. Only he had. Others were names on wall, somewhere remembered by families getting smaller every year. Who were they? Sophia asked. Brothers. James touched at each face, whispered names he'd never forget. All gone. I'm the only one left. Like your dad at Chosin, one of 15 from 200. 15 out of 200, James corrected. My father never talked about it much, just enough to make sure I understood cold fear, choice to stay, when leaving was smart play. And you learned the lesson. I learned the lesson. Ship shuddered, hitting first warp gate, space folding in ways, making his inner ear scream. Sophia compensated with practiced ease. 2 more jumps. Then Arcturus. Then whatever's waiting. James settled back, felt weight of father's silver star in pocket at 3 generations of men, making impossible choices, staying when staying was stupid, keeping promises even when promises meant dying. Some things were hereditary, some things were worth dying for. And some promises, ones made in fire, whispered in darkness, transcending time and distance, and since those were the only things mattering. Second warp gate approached. Sophia's fingers flew across console. Marcus closed his eyes, thought about singing trees and violet eyes, and woman who'd spent 12 years searching just to put him in situations where keeping promises might kill him. Worth it, he decided. Stupid, probably suicidal, definitely insane. But worth it. Arcturus Station floated in void like corpse refusing to sink, broken architecture, a monument to decisions made 12 years ago by men valuing strategy over lives. Stealth ship approached from darkside engines, barely whispering, every system tuned, avoiding sensor nets probably not existing but might. James stared through viewport at wreckage he'd last seen covered in blood, making promises. Station had been dying then. Now just dead corridors open to vacuum hull, breached in dozen places, frozen bodies visible through tears and superstructure. Sophia brought them through what used to be cargo bay precision flying, looking effortless and being anything but. We've got 90 minutes before poison becomes irreversible. After that, all antidotes in universe won't matter. Then we don't waste time. James checked sidearm standard plasma pistol, military issue kind he'd carried at Arcturus before. Weight felt familiar and wrong, like uniform no longer fitting. They cycled through airlock into corridors still holding atmosphere barely. Emergency lighting cast everything red color of warning and last chances. James's boots crunched on debris, frozen condensation shattered equipment, physical evidence of violence done and never answered. This way. He navigated by memory and guessed following corridors toward medical station where he'd made his stand. Walls still bore scorch marks from plasma fire. In one section, dried blood, his blood probably stained deck plating. His comms crackled. Sophia's voice tight. James picking up movement. Multiple heat signatures converging on your position. How many? 10, maybe 12. Military formation. They were waiting. Of course they were. James found cover behind structural support combat instincts, dusting off after 12 years. Tell Lyra. Tell her yourself. Lyra's voice cut in. I'm 30 seconds behind with backup. Your Majesty, you should what stay safe while you walk into trap meant for both of us. We've had this conversation. First soldiers appeared at quarters, far end armor and weapons marking them, Voss's personal guard. James counted 8 visible, meaning 4 more flanking or had high ground. Standard tactical deployment, kind they drilled into him at basic 20 years ago. Staff Sergeant Harper, Voss's voice echoed through corridor, amplified by suit speakers. Wondered if you'd come alone or if Queen would be foolish enough to accompany. James stayed behind, cover mine working angles. Where's the antidote safe? For now, Voss stepped into view armor, pristine in ways saying he never got close enough to fighting for it to get dirty. I ordered bombardment here 12 years ago. Did you know? Of course not. You were too busy playing hero. You murdered 200 civilians, blamed separatists. I eliminated witnesses to necessary actions. Voss's voice carried flat certainty of someone having justified atrocity so many times he believed his own lies. War required difficult choices. Lieutenant Ashara's transport evacuating survivors who'd have testified about those choices couldn't allow that. So you tried to kill her. I tried completing my mission. You interfered. Voss's soldiers advanced in coordinated pairs, professional and lethal. Now you're here, she's poisoned, and I have what you need. Surrender. I'll consider letting you both live long enough to watch me claim throne. James's finger tightened on pistol. Not the best offer I've had today. It's the only one you'll get. Firefight started before Voss finished sentence. James dropped first soldier with shot punching through armor at weak point near neck seal. Moved to new cover before return fire could find him. Body remembered combat rhythms, mind tried forgetting, shoot, move, assess, survive. Lyra's voice crackled. Engaging from your six. Don't shoot people helping. Palace commandos poured into corridor from behind, weapons tearing through Voss's formation with practiced efficiency. What had been ambush became battle, then rout. Voss's soldiers were good. Lyra's were better, fighting for queen instead of paycheck. Voss himself vanished in chaos, tactical retreat disguised as strategic repositioning. James pursued, medic brain screaming, chasing enemy into unknown, was how people died stupid deaths. Combat brain said Voss had antidote, and Lyra had 48 hours ticking to nothing. He found facility 3 levels down, hidden behind bulkheads, looking structural, but opening to biometric locks. Room beyond was part lab, part armory, all evidence of long-term planning. Equipment hummed on backup power. Computers displayed data about poisons and antidotes about killing queens. Slowly enough death looked natural. And on central table, vial of liquid, glowing faint blue and red, emergency lighting. James grabbed it, checked chemical marker, matched poison signature from analysis. The antidote or convincing fake meant to waste last hours on false hope. His comms erupted with static, and Sophia cutting through. James, get out now. Voss regrouping, we've got incoming explosion, took out corridor behind cutting escape, and Sophia's transmission in same burst. James stumbled, kept feet through training and luck. Smoke poured through facility, emergency systems screaming about hull breaches and pressure loss. Voss emerged from smoke like demon wearing general's insignia, armor servos, whining with augmented strength. Did you really think I'd let you walk out? James pocketed vial, raised pistol. Did you really think I'd come unprepared? General laughed. Sound like rocks grinding. You're medic playing soldier, Harper. I'm soldier who spent 30 years learning to kill. Math doesn't favor you. Then he moved faster than armor should allow, servo-assisted strength turning body into weapon. James fired, hit armor, absorbing blasts like suggestion. Rolled as Voss's fist cratered deck plating where his head had been. Father's voice echoed across decades. At Chosen we learned, size doesn't matter when fighting for your life. Hit them where they're weak, fight where they can't follow. James's medic training cataloged Voss's movement, saw slight hitch in left knee where old injury met new augmentation, Wade general favored right side where armor seams met. He'd spent 12 years fixing bodies, knew exactly where they broke. He dropped low and swept Voss's weak leg, followed with plasma shot to knee joint. Armor cracked. Servos shrieked. General went down hard, augmented strength, suddenly working against him, as damaged systems tried compensating and failed. James pressed pistol to Voss's helmet. Where's the full data evidence of massacre? General's laugh came distorted through damaged speakers. You think you've won. This was never about me. I'm just the blade. Callus holds the hilt. Chancellor Callus. He lost everything in plague, wife, children, entire family. Ashera lived. Callus decided that wasn't fair. Voss's helmet display flickered, showing damage readouts. I was supposed to kill you both quietly. Now he'll do it loudly, blame me for attempt. He always gets what he wants. James pulled data chip from Voss's armor, one containing proof of 12 years of murder and conspiracy. Not this time. You still don't understand. Voss's voice was fading, shock and system failure catching up. Callus doesn't just want Ashara dead. He wants entire alliance to burn. Thinks humanity corrupted Androlus. Thinks purging both is only way to save what's left. But James was already moving, had what he needed. He bound Voss's wounds, even traitors deserve not bleeding out alone, and headed for rendezvous. Sophia's voice burst through static. James, multiple ships approaching. Sky Throne under attack. It's Callus. He's leading coup. James reached the stealth ship, handed off data chip and antidote to Sophia. Get these to Lyra. Make sure it's real before she takes it. Where are you going? Back to Sky Throne. If Callus is making his move, she needs everyone who can fight. Sophia grabbed his arm. You'll never make it in time. We're 3 jumps out. Then I'll make it in 2. Some promises couldn't be kept from distance. Quantum slip drive screamed as James pushed past safety margins, compressing journey from Arcturus to Sky Throne into jumps, making space fold wrong and time move sideways. Through viewport reality bent like water around stone colors, that didn't exist bleeding into darkness, not quite void. Comms picked up transmissions, fragmented desperate sound of Skythrone's defenses being systematically dismantled. Callus had commandeered 30% of Andralis' fleet, turned it against Pallas, doing it with precision, speaking of months planning. James brought ship through siege lines, stealth systems cloaking from sensors, or too busy tracking larger threats. Pallas itself was under direct assault shields flickering as they absorbed bombardment meant to crack orbital platforms. He docked at auxiliary ports, cycled through airlock, into corridors preparing for war. Young guards, some he'd trained in combat triage days ago, rushed past carrying weapons and determination. Guard Captain Riley Chen spotted him first. "Dr. Harper, Her Majesty said you were at Arcturus. Change of plans." "Where is she?" Throne room, coordinating defense, but James, her voice dropped, counsel, split, half-sided with Callus when he revealed her illness. "We're fighting our own people, then we fight smarter." James grabbed rifle from armory, checked charge. How many loyal forces? 60% Palace security, most human contingent, Admiral Stone's fleet elements. Against 70 ships and Callus's ground forces inside Palace. Math was terrible. Math was always terrible. Where's biggest fight? Core control. Callus trying to take it offline, crash Palace into planet. If he succeeds, 3,000 die, and he walks away claiming he tried saving everyone. James thought about choices and geometry, about how battles were won in spaces between courage and stupidity. "Get me to core control. I can reset systems. You'd need royal authorization or bonded access, and you're bonded." Lyra synchronized my biometrics when I arrived. "For emergencies." His smile felt sharp. "This qualifies." Riley led him through corridors, actively reconfiguring Palace's defenses, trying to slow enemy advance, and not always distinguishing between friendly and hostile. They passed wounded, being evacuated, guards making last stands at choke points, crystalline trees, shrieking discord, making his teeth ache. Throne room was war zone. Lyra stood at center, light blade carving paths through Callus's mercenaries' movements, precise and lethal. Admiral Stone coordinated fleet elements from holographic display, submarine warfare instincts, translating surprisingly well to space combat. Lyra saw James, and something in expression shifted, relief and fury equally. "You're alive. Sophia got you the antidote." "She did. I'm not dead yet." Lyra deflected plasma bolts, sent it into ceiling. "Callus is at core control. He's locked us out. Then I'll unlock it." James moved before she could argue, before logic caught up to instinct. Core control was 3 decks down and 20 bad decisions away. He fought through corridors with rifle and training thought, retired, found himself moving like he was 30 again, and immortal. Guards he'd trained covered his advance, using techniques he'd taught, staying alive through lessons learned from medic who'd learned them from father, who'd learned them at Chosin. Core control room was vast, crystalline tech interfacing with organic systems, Palace's brain and heart combined. And in center, Chancellor Callus worked at terminal, with focused intensity of someone who'd planned this moment for years. He looked up as James entered. The medic. "Of course. You couldn't stay away. You're trying to kill 3,000 people. I'm trying to save Andralis from corruption." Callus's fingers never stopped moving, inputting commands, making Pallas shudder. "Ashara is dying. She hid it, weakened throne, allowed humans like you to infiltrate highest levels. Alliance was mistake. I'm correcting it. By committing mass murder, by doing what's necessary." Callus stepped back from terminal, and James saw what he'd done. Countdown 90 minutes until Palace's orbit decayed beyond recovery. "You can't stop it. System requires royal authorization to abort, and Ashara is busy dying in throne room." But something in Callus's eyes, pain, madness, grief, twisted into something unrecognizable. "You really believe this?" James realized. "You think you're saving them?" "I lost my wife, my 3 children. All died within week because plague didn't care about innocence." Callus's voice broke. "I created that plague, Harper. Trying to enhance Andralis immunity. My family were first test subjects. They died screaming. I blame myself. Then I blamed humans for corrupting our science. Now I'll purge both species. Start pure." James understood then. Not evil. Insane with grief. "Your family wouldn't want this. You don't know what they'd want." The shout echoed. Callus composed himself. "The abort protocol requires biosynchronization with Palace core systems. Temporary merge rewriting your DNA integrating Andralis nanotechnology into cellular structure. 50% survival rate. If you live, you'll be neither human nor Andralis, something in between, and you'll inherit Ashara's disease. Die with her in 6 months. And if I don't, 3,000 people die. Callus tilted head. How much are you willing to sacrifice for Queen who's dying anyway? For promise made 12 years ago, to someone barely remembering you now, James thought about father at Chosin, about 15 surviving from 200, because someone decided staying was worth dying for. Thought about Silver Star in pocket 3 generations of men making impossible choices. He placed hand on biointerface. Callus's expression shifted surprise and something like respect. You're actually going to do it. My father taught me something. James felt interface warm under Palm felt systems analyzing DNA and finding ways to rewrite it. He said, you measure a man by who he protects, not who he kills. I'm protecting 3,000 people in Queen who spent 12 years looking for me. That math works. System activated. Pain was inadequate to describe what happened next. James felt DNA unraveling, Andralis nanotechnology weaving through cells, rewriting fundamental code, making him human. Vision split normal spectrum in something beyond colors that shouldn't exist suddenly visible. Hearing expanded, catching frequencies silent before. Every nerve screamed, body convulsed. Blood vessels burst and repaired in same instant biology, fighting transformation and losing. Through agony, he saw flashbacks, every person saved at Arcturus, every promise made. Father carrying wounded through Korean snow, Lyra's hand gripping his while artillery fell. Father's voice distant across decades. A medic never leaves his wounded. 3 generations. Same promise. Systems came online. Countdown stopped. Palace stabilization protocols engaged orbit, correcting shields, strengthening. James collapsed. Transformed body, shutting down non-essential functions to process what just happened. Through blurring vision, he saw Callus staring with something between horror and fascination. What have you done? Kept a promise. James's voice came wrong, human words shaped by vocal cords not entirely human anymore. Tell Lyra, I'm sorry it took this long. Then darkness took him, and he fell into spaces between being and becoming. He woke to Lyra's face above expressions cycling through relief and fury, and something softer she tried hiding. You idiot. Kept my promise. You nearly died keeping it. Nearly doesn't count. James tried sitting, found body responding in ways feeling foreign and familiar equally. Skin carried faint crystalline patterns visible under certain light. Eyes saw spectrums not existing before. How long? 40 minutes. You synchronized with Palace core stabilized orbit, rewrote your DNA in process. Lyra's hand found his grip tight enough to hurt. Medics say you're stable. Mostly, you're now approximately 60% human, 40% Andralis. Sounds like failing grade. Sounds like your idiot who saved 3,000 lives. Medical bay doors burst open. Hayes rushed in, usual composure cracked by urgency. Your Majesty, Callus making final move. Broadcasting across all channels showing your medical scans calling for abdication. James stood transformed, body steady in ways human one hadn't been. Where is he? Throne room. Has Stone's forces pinned, demanding you appear to answer accusations? Then we answer them. Lyra's hand still held James's, didn't let go. Together, Your Majesty, with respect. Not debate, she looked at James' smile, carrying edges sharp enough to cut. We started this in fire. We'll finish it there. They moved through corridors, still echoing combat, past wounded being evacuated, and guards making desperate stands. Throne room doors opened, revealing Callus, commanding center forces surrounding him. Holographic displays showing Lyra's medical scans to anyone with eyes. The dying queen who lied to her people, Callus announced, voice carrying across chamber. Who brought humans into highest councils, who weakened us with illness and deceptions. Lyra stepped through doors, and every weapon tracked toward her. I never lied. I made strategic choices about what information to share and when. You're dying, Callus pointed to the scans. 6 months, maybe less. And you said nothing while conspiring with this. He gestured at James, this hybrid abomination. James felt eyes tracked to him, saw crystalline patterns under skin catching light, saw people recognize he was no longer entirely human. Abomination might have been generous. I saved 3,000 lives today, James said. What did you do besides try killing them? I'm trying to save Andralis from corruption you represent. Callus's powered armor whined as he moved servos, enhancing strength and speed. This alliance was a mistake. Humanity weakened us. Plague proved it. My family died proving it. Your family died to virus you created, Lyra said. That didn't care about politics or alliances. I lost people too. We all did. Revenge won't bring them back. No, but justice might give them peace. Callus attacked. James moved to intercept transformed body, responding faster than thought muscle memory, enhanced by Andralis augmentation. He caught Callus's armored fist, felt servos grind against bone, stronger than it should be. Lyra's light blade activated hum, a counterpoint to Callus's mechanical whine. They fought as Unit James, disrupting Callus's attacks with medical knowledge of where armor was weakest, Lyra following through with strikes, turning vulnerabilities into victories. Callus was strong, augmented, fighting with fury of someone having lost everything, and decided taking everything else was fair compensation. But James and Lyra fought with something harder to quantify: trust earned in fire promises. Kept across 12 years, kind of synchronization coming from seeing each other at worst and choosing to stay anyway. Battle lasted 3 minutes, feeling like hours. Callus's armor failed in stages, servos burning out shields, collapsing tech, making him dangerous, becoming prison, trapping him. He felt at knees, defeated but not dead. Lyra held Lightblade at his throat, hands steady. You wanted to rule. James's voice carried through throne room, amplified by acoustics designed to make pronouncements echo. You'll face trial. Justice, not execution. Callus laughed, sound like breaking glass. Justice, I lost my wife, my children. 3 sons and daughter all dead within week because your plague didn't care about innocence. Because I tried playing God with genetics and killed everyone I loved. The plague didn't care about anything, Lyra said quietly. It killed indiscriminately. My sisters died, my mother, cousins I barely knew and loved anyway. We all lost people, Callus. You're not special in your grief, but I'm special in my hate and my madness. That's saddest thing you've said. Lyra deactivated blade. Guards, take him to Brig. He'll face trial for treason, attempted murder, all of it. But alive. Stone's voice crackled through comms. Your Majesty, enemy fleet standing down. Officers surrendering. Siege is over. Throne room erupted in cheers, relief and exhaustion mixing into sound, hurting to hear. James swayed, transformed body demanding rest it couldn't afford. Lyra caught him before he fell. Still keeping promises until they're kept. Vision blurred, systems shutting down now that immediate crisis passed. How long do I have before what? Before this transformation kills me. Her expression told him everything. Medical bay, now. Scans were comprehensive and damning. James lay on examination table while holographic displays showed what he'd become: human DNA threaded with Andralis nanotechnology, cellular structures fighting to stabilize and might not succeed. Worse synchronization with Pallas had done exactly what Callus predicted. James had inherited Lyra's genetic degradation, same damage from Arcturus now written into transformed code. They were dying together, synchronized even in that. 6 to 8 months, medical technician said. For both of you, same deterioration, same timeline. Lyra dismissed technician, sealed room. Hand found James's grip tight. I'm sorry for what I chose this. I brought you here knowing it might kill you. You brought me here because I'm only one who could help. James sat up, enhanced senses picking up details never noticed before: Lyra's heartbeat, slightly irregular stress markers in biochemistry, faint luminescence under skin, where Andralis biology met whatever made her royal. I'd make same choice again. Even knowing you're dying, especially knowing. 6 months with purpose beats 20 years hiding in Arizona. Door open. Sophia rushed in, data chip in hand. Found something in Voss's files. Ancient Andralis medical facility, pre-war tech hidden in Arcturus system. It's designed to cure genetic degradation. James and Lyra exchanged looks. There's always a catch. Catch is accessing, requires both human and Andralis DNA simultaneously. Sophia pulled up schematics: facility buried in asteroid, protected by security, recognizing only specific genetic combinations. You'd need hybrid to even get through door. James felt transformed body crystalline patterns under skin DNA, neither human nor Andralis, but something new. I'm a hybrid. Exactly. Sophia's smile was fierce. Voss knew about this place. That's why he was desperate to kill you both. You're only ones who can access Cure, and Cure is only thing that can save Alliance. 6 months wasn't long, but enough to search, enough to try, enough to keep one more promise. Council reconvened 3 days later. Callus stripped of rank and confined Voss facing court-martial Alliance, shaken but intact. Lyra addressed them with voice carrying certainty and steel. I'm dying, you all know now. Kellis made sure of that. She gestured to medical scans, still displayed illness, public knowledge. I have 6 months. Dr. James Harper has same. We're searching for cure, may find one. Or not. Council shifted, uncomfortable with mortality made manifest. But in those 6 months, we'll rebuild what was broken. We'll prove this alliance, human and Andralis together, is stronger than forces trying to tear it apart. And we'll leave legacy outlasting us both. Lyra's violet eyes swept chamber, daring anyone to argue. Harper is appointed chief medical advisor. He'll train interspecies medical corps, teaching humans and Andralis to save each other's lives. That's alliance I want to build. Admiral Stone stood, weathered face, carrying approval. Your father would be proud, Harper. Chosen Reservoir Arcturus Station, Sky Throne. 3 generations, same courage. James thought about Father's Silver Star, now mounted in Palace's military museum, alongside Andralis decorations and human medals, proof that valor transcended species. We do what we can with what we have. That's all any generation can manage. Council voted reforms passed, new security protocols, established alliance strengthened by surviving someone trying to destroy it. Not perfect, not even close. But better than before, and better was enough. 6 months passed in blur of urgency and purpose. James trained 50 students, humans and Andralis, both in combat medicine, combining human field doctrine with Andralis biotech. Guard Captain Riley became lieutenant and lead instructor, teaching others what James taught her. Expedition to find ancient facility was prepared, ships provisioned, hope carefully maintained against weight of terminal diagnoses. And on night before they left, James stood in observatory with Lyra, watching stars wheel overhead, in patterns making sense only to people having learned to navigate by dying. Whatever happens, we face together. Lyra's hand found his palms pressed together, human and Andralis and hybrid, all touching. 12 years ago, I promised you wouldn't die alone. James felt transformed body humming with energy. It couldn't keep DNA slowly unraveling despite best efforts. My dad made same promise at Chosin. 3 generations later, we're still keeping it. And now we live together, however long we have. Crystalline trees below began playing melody they'd never managed before, harmonious, complex, beautiful in ways transcending music. They sang about promises kept and futures uncertain, about people fighting against odds, not caring about courage or determination. James had placed Father's Silver Star in military museum that morning. 3 generations of men who'd stayed when leaving was easier, who'd kept promises even when promises demanded everything. Metal gleamed next to Andralis decorations, proof some values transcended species. Tomorrow they'd leave for Arcturus. Tomorrow they'd search for cure might not exist. Tomorrow they'd fight against time and biology and math favoring neither. But tonight they stood together in observatory, hanging between planet and void, watching stars, not caring about human lifespans or Andralis genetics or hybrid transformations. Universe was vast and indifferent and beautiful beyond measure. Some promises transcended time. Some bonds transcended species. And some love, kind, forged in fire and maintained through 12 years of searching, transcended death itself. Even if death was just 6 months away and closing fast. Journey to ancient facility took 3 days through space that bent wrong. When they arrived, James understood why precursors had hidden it here. An asteroid in dead system, easily overlooked, protected by tech-making sensors, slide past like water over glass. The facility powered itself online as their ship approached, holographic systems activating after centuries dormant. A figure appeared, humanoid but wrong features, suggesting neither human nor Andralis, nor anything currently existing. The hologram spoke in language simultaneously, both and neither words. Ship's computer struggled translating. If you've come this far, humanity and Andralis have finally united. The cure awaits. But so does truth about plague, and who really created it. Hologram flickered, waiting. James and Lyra's ship entered facility's docking bay, drawn by invitation and desperation equally. They walked through corridors where ancient battles had been fought and forgotten, where species neither human nor Andralis had made last stands against something facility's memory refused naming. Cure Chamber sat at facility's heart, vast and intimate equally. Two pods dominated center side-by-side surfaces, reflecting light coming from nowhere and everywhere. Bioorganic interfaces covered every surface tech grown, rather than built alive in ways making James's transformed biology recognize kinship. Ancient AI's voice emerged from all directions, simultaneously hybrid detected, queen detected, DNA analysis complete, treatment protocol available. Parameters appeared in holographic displays adjusting to human and Andralis visual spectrums. Treatment duration 1 standard year. Success probability 87.3%. Warning cellular reconstruction may cause memory fragmentation. Emotional bonds will anchor consciousness during transformation. Separation during treatment. Fatal to both subjects. James studied pods medic brain cataloging what they represented. Year unconscious DNA rewritten for third time in 6 months, memories potentially scrambled like static. 13% chance they die anyway together this time. Better than alternative. Lyra's hand tightened on his. 1 year. No guarantee we'll remember each other when we wake. AI clarified bonded subjects retain connection. Memories fragment individually but reform collectively. You will remember together what you forget alone. James thought about father at Chosin, about promises made when keeping them meant dying. Thought about 12 years Lyra spent searching about impossibility of standing here now, about how some promises required patience instead of courage. I made a promise 12 years ago. His voice echoed in chamber, harmonizing with frequencies he couldn't hear but could feel in transformed bones. I'm keeping it now, even if it takes a year. Lyra's smile carried edges of fear and determination. Then let's keep it together. They entered P, surfaces molded to their bodies, bioorganic interfaces analyzing hybrid and royal DNA with thoroughness, feeling invasive and necessary. Systems activated in cascading sequences, cellular scanners, neural stabilizers, kind of tech making. Medicine looked like prayer. James felt consciousness beginning to fade, body surrendering to processes older than civilizations. Through Pod's transparent cover, he saw Lyra in adjacent chamber, hand pressed against surface reaching toward his. Crystalline structures grew between pods, bridging gap, connecting them at molecular levels. Their DNA interfaced through crystal lattice, ensuring they'd heal together or die together. No middle ground, no separation. AI's final message displayed in text, burning itself into James's fading awareness. Treatment initiated. Upon completion, subjects will receive classified information regarding plague origin. Warning: some knowledge carries consequences. Some truths rewrite history. Consent to revelation is mandatory for treatment completion. James's last conscious thought was simple. Worth it. His hand in crystal lattice found Lyra's, their transformed DNA weaving together through ancient tech, promising again what they'd promised 12 years ago. You won't die alone. I'll stay. We'll face whatever comes next together. Then darkness came, but it was healing kind. Outside facility, Admiral Stone's fleet took defensive positions, 36 ships arranged in patterns, making approaching asteroids suicidal for anyone with hostile intent. Admiral himself stood on bridge watching scanners showing 2 life signs buried deep in ancient stone stable and slowly improving. 1 year, he told his officers, we guard them for 1 year. On Skythrone, Riley led 50 students James trained through advanced trauma procedures, passing on what he'd taught her, ensuring his legacy lived even while he slept. Medical corps he'd built would continue, would grow, would prove some lessons transcended teachers teaching them. Crystalline trees and palace gardens played their new harmony, melody having taken 12 years to compose and would continue for however long they stood. Song spoke of promises kept across impossible distances, of bonds surviving transformation, and time of 2 people having found each other in fire and refusing to let go even when letting go was easier. Some cures took time. Some promises required patience measured in years instead of moments. And some bonds forged in burning wreckage maintained through 12 years of searching, strong enough to transcend species and death, and space between dying and living. Those bonds were worth any weight, any risk, any price universe demanded. James and Lyra slept in their pods, hands joined through crystal DNA, reweaving itself into something might survive. 1 year until they woke. 1 year until they learned truth about who'd created plague. 1 year until they discovered whether promises kept were enough to save them both. It would have to be enough, because 3 generations had taught James that some promises transcended death. And 12 years of searching had taught Lyra that some people were worth finding, even when finding them meant facing truths, rewriting everything. Facility hummed its ancient song, healing what war and time had broken, preparing to reveal secrets civilizations had died to keep hidden. Outside, stars wheeled on in their eternal dance. Inside, two people slept and healed and dreamed of futures might actually exist. Countdown began. 365 days until awakening. Time enough for promises. Time enough for truth. Time enough for hope.